skill development, we are still lagging behind. Far less than 50% of the population finishes secondary school. Just 10% of them actually make it to university level. And if you combine that with the amount of those that actually drop out of primary school over the last 5 years, it's about a third of those enrolled. So all this tells us that in terms of the quantity, there is a long way to go for the continent to catch up. But you also, if you look in terms of the quality of those that actually go through the education system, the scores of the continent in terms of harmonized scores also fall behind. So the type of what we need to do depends on, and there's a variety of stages in terms of the skill development within the continent. So the specifics of what each country need to do would depend on where they are on the spectrum of performance in education. I think another issue is also what those students that are studying, what fields are they studying, and what does this end up with? So, for example, there is a concentration of the spending, the education, especially at tertiary schools, in more social sciences, and less on the issues of related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is the type of skills that we need for the future generations. And this tend to also, from our own research at the African Development Bank, those that are studying non-STEM subjects tend to have higher issues in terms of skill mismatches. So we end up with higher skill mismatches in areas that are related to social sciences than for those studying STEM. So that's like an overview of the issues of where we are. So in terms of what the countries do, of course, we have to start with the basics. We have to make sure that within the continent we eradicate illiteracy. We have to make sure that there is enrollment of students in basic education in primary and secondary. We have to make sure that we are targeting our spending, not just in terms of spending on these levels and ensuring that this is attractive for households in terms of investing, having their kids invest their time and effort to go to school and feeling that this would matter for their social mobility, their future, that getting a job is based on meritocracy, that actually getting an education can help them move forward. All these elements are important, but also ensuring how the spending is done. For example, prioritizing what should be spending. If we're spending that much on education, but we're not getting the outcomes, how can we assess actually where's the highest impact of each dollar spent on that sector? And here we need to prioritize in terms of where does it make sense to have better targeting of the spending. For example, in terms of university education, should we focus on targeting more the university education to those that are needy, and focusing on improving the lower universal education and the quality of that education for primary and secondary. So there are a number of issues that we need to get right, but moving forward to in terms of the future or what is needed, we need to keep an eye on, okay, this is the status quo of where we are. We need to make sure that to work together with the private sector to align curriculum, to align the focus of the education and what is needed in the workplace, but we need to keep an eye with the global trends of where things are going. So we need to make sure that these curriculums are updated to include the subjects of the future, things like coding, like artificial intelligence, data sciences. These type of specialities are needed to actually move the skills of the labor force toward what is required in the future. All these issues will be paramount, and we can, as much as there is all the vibe about the fourth industrial revolution can have a negative impact on the job opportunities of the continent, we can actually also turn it into an opportunity. We need to remember that African continent is the one that advanced and invented mobile banking. And this is out of need. So we turned that, innovation came from the continent and was spread worldwide. So we can turn it into our advantage in terms of reskilling the labor force, reaching remote areas that would not have been able to get the quality of education without these technologies before, having access to things like health services in different ways without perhaps needing to build the schools or the hospitals. So we can leapfrog, use that innovation advances to leapfrog where we are, rather than be left behind.
Excellent, thank you very much. I noticed quite a number of solutions that you endeavor to prefer there, which includes, eradicating illiteracy, ensure spending is targeted at those sectors that will actually build the skills required for the youth. You also mentioned the issue of working with the private sector, and we'll be listening to Dr. Fokam later, who is a private sector expert on the panel, on what we can actually do together. You also talk about curriculum refocusing and also reskilling. Excellent, excellent intervention. Now, in my previous discussion with you, Mr. Litze, you did mention that there is a particular thing we need to focus on when it comes to preparing our youth for the future of work. Can you please share that insight with us?
Well, thank you very much, Eric. With your permission, I'm going to speak in French.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. Alors, l'histoire nous apprend que les avancées technologiques ont apporté de nettes améliorations dans les conditions de vie. Mais l'histoire nous apprend aussi que pendant des périodes de transition, il y a eu des difficultés pour certains métiers et pour certains secteurs. Et nous sommes en plein dans une nouvelle révolution, c'est la 4e révolution. Et il faut donc ancrer le futur de l'emploi des jeunes dans cette révolution. Et cela comporte de l'anxiété, cela comporte certainement aussi l'espoir, mais cela comporte aussi de l'inspiration. Anxiété, pourquoi? Anxiété parce que nous avons certainement des boulots, des jobs qui vont disparaître, avec ce que cela implique. Anxiété, mais aussi espoir. Mais espoir, pourquoi? Espoir parce qu'il y aura la création de nouveaux produits, de nouveaux services et partant de nouveaux jobs, et tant en quantité qu'en qualité. Alors, il est donc tout à fait important que les décideurs économiques, tant publics que privés, prennent cela en compte, qui s'attellent à la mise en œuvre d'un cadre porteur pour que, n'est-ce pas, l'inspiration des jeunes prenne corps. Bon, nous voyons déjà cela se passer dans certaines régions d'Afrique. Il y a le mobile money qui est en pleine activité, en plein boom en Afrique de l'Est. Nous avons, n'est-ce pas, le Biscayne Phone-Based Recruitment System au Mozambique. Nous avons la télémédecine, n'est-ce pas, en Afrique du Sud. Et tous ces exemples, n'est-ce pas, montrent qu'il y a une perspective heureuse, n'est-ce pas, dans la 4e révolution industrielle.
Very great. So now, please, let me follow up with the points you have made.
Sure.
So what do you think are the requirements that will make this happen? And maybe added to that would be, what is the World Food Programme doing about this?
Eh bien, merci. Alors, il existe plusieurs domaines, n'est-ce pas, d'action essentielle. Certains domaines sont connus. Je pense que l'art de la pédagogie, c'est aussi la répétition. Et donc, le premier domaine, puisqu'on parle de quatrième révolution, c'est la connectivité. Et il faut absolument accroître la connectivité. Bon, on a besoin d'infrastructures, hein, les infrastructures classiques de ports, les aéroports, n'est-ce pas, les chemins de fer, qui d'ailleurs font la part belle dans les plans d'investissement des pays, mais on a besoin d'infrastructures numériques. Et cette infrastructure numérique, de beaucoup de pays, n'est-ce pas, ont déjà fait des progrès. Je parle du Kenya, du Nigeria, des Seychelles, dont la pénétration, n'est-ce pas, d'infrastructures numériques est palpable. Mais on en a besoin pour accroître, n'est-ce pas, la productivité dans des zones rurales, dans le secteur agricole, et dans un continent où nous importons encore 50 milliards de dollars, n'est-ce pas, de denrées alimentaires, et on pourrait même atteindre 110 milliards d'ici 2030, si rien n'est fait, n'est-ce pas, pour pallier à cela. Alors, nous en avons besoin pour intégrer les marchés ruraux aux marchés nationaux, aux marchés régionaux et au marché mondial. Et nous avons besoin de cela, n'est-ce pas, pour transformer le monde rural. Ça, c'est la première des choses, la connectivité. La deuxième des choses, on en a encore parlé hier, c'est celui de créer un cadre porteur, n'est-ce pas, pour que ces initiatives privées puissent prendre corps. Nous en avons parlé hier, on en parle depuis longtemps. Je ne vais pas y revenir, mais il s'agit de doing business. Il y a des pays qui vont très vite, cela signifie que c'est possible. Et il y a des pays qui vont lentement, et on ne sait pas pourquoi. Alors, donc, il est important donc, que ce doing business puisse créer le cadre approprié, n'est-ce pas, pour que les entreprises puissent éclore. Le ministre du Nigeria nous a parlé du cas du Nigeria. Mais il faut que pour le doing business, nous prenions des actions décisives. Il faut partir du think tank que nous sommes au do tank. Absolument important. Sinon, nous allons certainement répéter les mêmes erreurs constamment. Il faut aussi investir dans le domaine éducatif. C'est ma collègue vient d'en parler, mais il faut une éducation relativement flexible. Il ne s'agit pas de savoir quelle nouvelle technologie est substituée au complément au travail, mais il convient de poser la question autrement. La question, il faut la poser en sens inverse. La question, c'est de quelles compétences seront complémentaires aux technologies? Quelles compétences seront nécessaires pour que l'on puisse développer et utiliser les technologies? Donc, ça, c'est des activités. Et la troisième activité qui me semble importante, dont on a aussi parlé hier, c'est celui de l'intégration commerciale. Et en ce sens, l'accord sur la zone de libre-échange continentale récemment conclu constitue une étape importante dans le sens qu'il permettra à l'Afrique, n'est-ce pas, de former un grand marché intérieur. Il s'agit d'un marché intérieur africain. Et dans ce grand marché intérieur, évidemment, ça permettra à nos agriculteurs, à tous nos petits porteurs, n'est-ce pas, d'augmenter leurs activités. Alors, la question de savoir ce que fait le programme alimentaire mondial. Dans ce rééquilibrage entre l'humanitaire et l'urgence, donc le programme alimentaire est connu, il y a un shift, n'est-ce pas, vers le développement. Et ce shift vers le développement s'est fait par deux actions principales. La première action, c'est un investissement dans le e-commerce. Donc l'importance de la connectivité, pour permettre donc à nos petits exploitants agricoles, pour permettre aux agriculteurs, n'est-ce pas, d'avoir accès au marché. En fait, il s'agit d'amener le marché à ses producteurs. il s'agit d'amener le marché à ces exploitants agricoles. Donc ce e-commerce permettra certainement d'augmenter la connectivité et d'avoir donc une augmentation de la production, de la productivité, mais aussi des travailleurs. Le second point important, et on en a parlé tout le long des discussions, c'est celui des données. Hier et avant-hier, nous sommes revenus constamment sur l'importance des données. Des données pour les ODD, SDGs, si vous voulez, des données pour la décision politique, pour la décision économique. Et il y a une forte demande, mais on n'arrive pas à les produire. Alors, le Programme alimentaire mondial s'exerce maintenant à créer une initiative pour les jeunes, la création d'emplois des jeunes dans la collecte des données statistiques. C'est une activité pas d'une seule année, c'est une activité qui peut s'étendre sur 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 ans parce qu'on a toujours des besoins. Alors nous avons quelques initiatives heureuses que nous avons commencées en Côte d'Ivoire, dont l'objectif est d'employer 200 000 jeunes dans la collecte des données, des SDGs. Cette initiative aussi va s'appliquer au Ghana, elle va s'appliquer au Kenya pour commencer et va certainement s'étendre au reste du continent progressivement. Donc ce sont là les activités que nous menons, n'est-ce pas, à l'endroit des jeunes. Et je voudrais parler donc de connectivité. Hier, nous avons parlé du cas de notre jeune ami tanzanien, Fouad Daoud, qui a donc une activité agricole, qui, à travers la connexion, permet d'employer beaucoup plus de personnes. Il est d'ailleurs dans la salle. Et je pense que c'est un exemple qu'il faudrait multiplier pour pouvoir atteindre les 3-4 millions de personnes que nous voulons employer. Merci.
Very good point. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on those interesting things that WFP is doing. There are about 3-4 things I really noticed from your presentation. One is the issue of infrastructure development, which is necessary. Then I like the way you drill down to connectivity itself and all the benefits that it holds for Africa and especially for our youths. I liked your idea too about moving from think tank to do tanks. It's not just all about thinking, but we need to take action. And that is the essence of some of these gatherings that we hold all the time. You touched on investing in e-commerce, and this again is another very, very impactful way that we can indeed prepare our youth for the future of work. Now, let me come to you, Dr. Fukam. You had told me earlier that you are puzzled that Africa is unable to create the needed jobs because we have the potential to do that, right? So, as a private sector person who is involved in creating jobs, can you share your perspectives with us regarding even what is job itself and how we can overcome some of these obstacles that we see around creating jobs?
Thank you very much. What you say is very important because to avoid any discussion, it is important to give the definition of the job. For me, job is or can be defined as a human activity that creates value. Human activity that creates value. This definition is very important because many people, many youth, many people are thinking that the job is only having a position in a given institution, in a given organization, which is not the case. Having salary is not only the way to have job. In fact, what is the situation of the job in Africa? And this, because it is important to know if we can have job, if there is job in Africa, and what is the situation. I can say that with estimation from 10 to 12 million youth every year joining the labor force, joining the market, the labor market, We are able in Africa only to give jobs to 3, maximum 4 million. That means we have minimum 7 to 8 million jobless. This is a key problem. In fact, we can have the second question to say, can African create job? The job do exist. Those exist in Africa. I can say it, in my own opinion, Africa have a tremendous potential for job creation. Our population is very vast. We are going in 2015 to reach 2 billion. This is the huge possibility to create jobs, to create company, to develop agriculture, and so on and so forth. Africa's surface soil is about 60% of the world Arab land, is also a potential for job creation. African landscape is rich, a very diverse, and also our culture, our custom. One of the huge diversity we can see in the world, still be the possibility to create a million and million of jobs. We need also, like my colleague was saying, a lot of infrastructure for our economic development. There still be all the possibility for job creation. But we used to talk, there is job, there is job. How to transform that into reality? That is a problem. The reality is that, and is very important, is that from 2013 and 2019, about 20 conferences and meetings have been held to address this issue in Africa or in the other continent without significant result. Why? Because we are, I don't know how to say, but this is the situation, the fact. But there is a possibility to promote practical response to the issue of job for youth and for everyone. The first thing which for me is very important is to reinvent. Well, some say to reform, but I prefer to reinvent our educational system. Our educational system is not adapted to the situation of job. We have to promote critical thinking and questioning. The two are the key for innovation. The two are the key for invention. We have also, and this is what we do, we don't address every time in good manner. Our government, different people don't know that it's very important to promote a great generation of entrepreneurs capable to create jobs, to transform Africa from despair to prosperity. It's only those entrepreneurs who can do the job. And the role of the government is to push them to make things happen. Another thing which for me is very important is the changing of our mindset. You know, from the beginning I was saying that job is not only having a salary, job is not only having a position in a giving organization. We have to change mindset. Stop being bigger, sitting on a gold mine, train for our youth to take risk everywhere, but especially in Africa. You know that many of our youth are very well educated, but in the different continents, they are not willing coming in Africa. What to do to attract them to create jobs in Africa? This is a key issue. And we have also to think twice about the different agreements we are signing, our government is signing. For example, the partnership, the economy partnership, something like that, it is a very important obstacle for our industry development, for our agricultural development. We have to, from today, stop talking and act. And it is very important. You are going to say you have been or you are an entrepreneur. What you have done.
Excellent. In fact, that's to be my follow-up question.
I am sure this is it. When I can go to say the case of African First Bank Group, what we are doing in the whole Africa, or in the country in Africa we are operating. We are one of the rare corporations in our environment that hire young graduate straight out from school, irrespective of their area of specialization. That means that you can have any specialization. This is not a problem for us. What is a problem is how we are going to train you. How we are going to train you, we have partnership with a Pan-African university with whom we design the curriculum we want them to teach. And the relevant curriculum help us to say, yes, when they are graduate from the school, we are sure that they can have job. We are sure that they can be more practical. And that's why I was talking about the reinvention of our educational system. Don't continue to have the system we have actually, which is not helping us to do something. We insist in that process of training on critical thinking. We can help everyone to shape his own life. That is the satisfactory evidence. We have the satisfactory evidence that in our training course, through critical thinking and different case studies, we can shape the mind of everyone and help him to be himself, to work for himself, to create, to invent. And this should be the aim of education. We also have in our institution create a department which is promoting entrepreneurs. And that helps us in every year to make sure that we have 10, 20, 15 entrepreneurs trained, and you can who can be able to take action in different countries. Finally, and this is very important, we can say we have entrepreneurs at this level, we have at the higher level, at the middle level. What about entrepreneurs at the bottom? And this is one of the key jobs we are doing. During the last 30 years, we have created thousands and thousands of jobs around poor, and every poor community in many African countries through our model MC2, which is our approach for corporate social responsibility. In fact, we have created a program we call Agropol or Minopol and so on, which Agrocosta, Agrocosta and so on, which means exactly that we are trying to help the big entrepreneur to create surrounding him many small enterprises to help him increase his own production, to help him develop more, be more social in a given environment in which he is operating. This is what I can say about it, knowing that perhaps we should have many questions during the talk.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Fokam. I like the working definition you gave about job, and we have a number of academics in the room. So you may want to add this to your literature review. There is a new definition of job here, which is human activity that creates value. Okay. Now, there are several other things you mentioned too, which is highly, highly interesting. First, you reeled out why you feel that Africa has all the potential to create jobs, which hinges on the population, the arable land, and even the culture, which we can sell, to the entire world. I also noticed some of the recommendations, some of the solutions that you prefer, which include, you use the new word reinvent. You prefer to use the word reinvent the education system. You talk about promoting generation of entrepreneurs, and one very important thing, which is changing the mindset of the youth. So it should not just be, job is all about coming out of school, go get a formal education. You can do something else that can still get you gainfully employed. I also noticed what your organization, Afriland First Bank Group, is doing. I like what you talk about, the issue of you are the institution that hire all graduates irrespective of their discipline. So all our youth who are here, you have a job already. So just go to Afriland, whatever you study, he is willing. The institution is willing and ready to recruit you and give you the needed training. And that's a very interesting thing that you do.
If I can say one word.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, the key thing is that I am founder of one university.
Oh.
Yes, and during the we funded the university that is 12 years ago, and our objective is essentially never have people graduate from us and be jobless. And this is the situation. We never have it because we went to see different.
Not yet. Not here.
We go to see different enterprises, different entrepreneurs, and say, what are your needs? What are your needs? Different needs in what area? How do you want us to train your people, to train the people that you need?
Can you bring the microphone closer? It's like...
I don't know where it is.
No, it's just there. Yes.
I am lost.
You were talking about the fact that you create jobs for all the graduates from your university and they never get to look for jobs.
Not we create job.
Oh, sorry,
they are trained such a way that they are able to create job or they are able to have job from different company. This is the way of I am thinking that the education should be in the next future. Make sure that discuss with different partners in the civil society to know exactly what are their needs, what they want from us, and for there we can we can educate our students for that purpose.
I think that's a very convenient way now to speak to hear the voice of the youth representative on this panel. This issue of curriculum reinventing that you're talking about, where there's 100% job security for all those who attend your university, is very interesting. As a youth, you were in the school system, you can remember what you learned, and when you come to the real world, you also know what the reality looks like in terms of the skills that you need. So what reform then do you think would be necessary to ensure that youth, through education reform, can indeed get prepared for the future of work?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would say that the educational system needs to consult with different organizations, industries in different walks of life to know the kind of skills needed or required from the youth on jobs available. This will help inculcate into the curriculum of the schools. Also, youth need to be equipped with ICT skills, digital skills, so they can meet the needs of the labor market. Also, naturally, to be able to have positive impact on the economy. For instance, digital training. Learning the productivity tools for those who want to probably fit in as an administrative personnel or administrative office. With the productivity tools such as Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, once the person knows all those tools, it's more easy for that person to function on that job. Therefore, I think that there's need for an agreement between the government and the institution to train youths on probably technical, there should be a technical training, vocational training, ICT, and digital skills. To my own understanding, it would be wise enough that the government should have to invest in capacity building in order for the youth to get these jobs. I would like to encourage private organizations like AfDB are doing and UN to do more work by funding more trainings like they have done with me.
Wow. So you are indeed a voice of the youth who have benefited from some of these initiatives.
Yes.
That's really interesting. So I like the point you made about working together, or what I would call talk to each other,
Yes.
between the education system and the private sector who really need these skills at the end of the day.
Yes.
So then I like the point you also made about the needed training, reskilling that are required for the youth to actually be ready, which include basic Microsoft software operation, digital training, technology, vocational studies, and so on and so forth. I also like the point you made about the possibility of a kind of public-private partnership in driving this process. And you ended with issue of capacity. And now I'll come to Dr. Diawara Barasu. You are the capacity building expert on Africa. You've been doing this for years. You build institutions, including individual capacity. So from where you sit, how do you think, what role can you really play in preparing our youth, capacitating them, as it were, for the future of work?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I get afraid when you say that the capacity building expert in Africa. I think all who are seated here are actually experts, and they've actually responded to that question, I mean, in one way or the other. You know, maybe just 2 points before I respond exactly to that question. I think the context we set for the future of work for youth actually pays a lot of attention to the fourth industrial revolution. But I think we should add another mega trend, which is climate change, demographic dividend, but also the globalization and the specific context of Africa. We have Agenda 2063, we have the 5 highs, and then we also have the SDGs. So if you look at that, that's okay, saying by 2023, which is the first 10-year implementation plan, this is where we want to be. So to be there, what kind of job do we need? And then we can really factor youth and the type of job they'll be required to achieve those, specific goals or targets. The good news is, okay, 2023 is not far, 2030 is not that far, and we know exactly what is needed. But the bad news is, given the trend, as Dr. Mosi was saying, we are not really yet there. So we did a study for the African Union Commission to say, okay, what are the capacities required for Africa to achieve Agenda 2063? So we try to have some numbers. One example is by 2023, we'll need such a number of medical doctors. So imagine how much is lacking. The gap is about 8 million. In terms of researchers, the gap is about 1.2. In terms of engineers, the gap is about almost 1.2 million also. So it means that a lot needs to be done, and youth also have to be really factored, taken into account in those numbers. That's the first point I wanted to make. So the second point, when we are talking about jobs and the like, usually it's the young people who get fired first when there are issues. So they're also the last to be recruited when there are opportunities. So it means that they really need a very special attention. Now, coming to your question on the type of, let's say, capacity which are needed or what we need to do, I think all the panelists have responded in one way or the other. I mean, in terms of, let's say, technical skills, critical thinking, mindset change. So we can put that in the much broader sense. So by having 3 types of, let's say, skills. The first one is cognitive skills. In that one, we will have, 2 types. The basic cognitive skills, which are about, reading, writing, and being able to do the like. And the analytical skills, which are also required. So the non-cognitive skills are actually somehow the soft side of the skills. Means we'll need things in terms of communications. We'll need things in terms of, let's say, mindset change and the like. And the third one, which is very important, is the technical and sector-specific skills. So that's where ICT and the likes is coming. So those are so we should approach these in the very non-traditional way, to make sure that youth have the skills. So now, because the fourth industrial revolution is actually, the bigger picture. So if you look at that context, so it means that what we need for young people is the digital skills. Now we are saying about literacy. So this one has to be digital literacy. So like coding, as Dr. Mosi was saying, engineering, and those type of skills. And we have the digital, let's say, complementary skills. It's the skill that comes actually to accompany, all the knowledge and ability you have in terms of digital. So communication has to come in that, interpersonal or interrelationship has to come with that. Teamwork has to come. I mean, even Pan-Africanism, which is actually the core of Agenda 2063. We don't know how to do or how to behave when it comes to Pan-Africanism, because I think that concept is very important. If we're able to live the value of Pan-Africanism, I think youth won't really suffer that much. So those are the point I want to make. Now, for ACBF, where I'm coming from, the African Capacity Building Foundation, there have been a lot of thinking about mindset change. The issue is, I think for the past 2 or 3 years, we've been working on how to develop, a capacity building program on that mindset change. So it's something that is ongoing. It's a very, let's say, tricky area, but we are really hoping that we can come up with a capacity building program, with definitely other partners. AfDB is a partner and a funder or a father of ACBF, so you're also welcome in that. Otherwise, to support the youth, I think we've been doing it, let's say, in 3 or 4 ways. Number one is a training. That's really a traditional way of supporting young people. Me, myself, I've benefited from ACBF capacity building programs, and I've seen many young, people who are also coming from those programs. We have in the Francophone, the program de troisième cycle interuniversitaire. In Anglophone side, we have, the economic policy management, the EPM programs, which are in different countries. We also have recently the science and techniques, science and technology university. One is in Abuja, the other one is in Ouagadougou, the other one is at Arusha in Tanzania. So that's on the training. There are much more, in terms of training program. The other one, I think our colleague from FAO was talking about think and do things. So ACBF is known for establishing and supporting think tanks. But think tanks, it's just a name. They are considering themselves as think and do tanks. I think they play a very important role in supporting government and African countries in terms of designing, implementing, and monitoring policies. Because now we are in the, let's say, in the period or the era of, battle of ideas. So African countries have, great people. Go to wherever you go. These international, let's say, recognized think tanks, there are just so many Africans there. And within the continent, we have great people, great think tanks. The case I can give you, for example, in Kenya, there is KIPRA, the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research Analysis, which is actually very trusted by the government. They support policies which are all evidence-based. In Kigali, Rwanda, there is IPA, Rwanda, which actually is supporting the government in evaluating in a very independent way the policies they are putting in place. So most of us know that in December, Kagame is going to a retreat with all his ministers, taking them accountable. Okay, you've said that you've set this target, 1, 2, 3. you're going to achieve this. This report is showing that you did not achieve such and such. So what to do? So that's a system of accountability that think tanks are actually playing. So I could give so many examples on think tanks on what they are doing. So the third one is in terms of knowledge production and sharing. We've worked on a number of knowledge products targeting, youth and unemployment issues, supported by the African Development Bank. Of course, we thank you for that. We also have joint capacity building programs that we are doing with partners. AfDB is one of them. AUC, the African Union Commission, is one of them. And much more recently, we have the BADEA and the Afrexim Bank. But they are actually biased toward young women. So they are, training for women in agriculture. They're also training of young entrepreneurs, plus at the end, providing seed funds for them to run their business. So that's what we've been doing recently with the BADEA. So to all these, especially the program we are doing with partners, or the capacity building program we are actually developing, a key component is that two things we always take into account: the gender dimension and the youth dimension. I mean, it has become a policy that, any project or any program that is developed, so it has to be assessed against those, two important elements. So I will stop here, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Very excellent. Let me now take time to go through what you have said, because I want the audience to also have the opportunity to participate in this discussion. I think that will help us greatly. So I'm coming to the audience now. We'll just take a few questions, and then it could as well be comments. Then we'll come back to the panel to wrap up in just maybe 1 second each. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Adela. I'm from Johannesburg. I think we really need to think about the educational system critically. The way the educational system in Africa is organized, the way I see it, because I work in the system, it's sort of like we're still running on the same parameters the universities in Europe and America, the same parameters they are running on, but those parameters are not necessarily working for us. For instance, he gave an example that now somebody comes out with a degree, which in most African countries is free education, so it's at taxpayers' expense. And then we impose additional cost on him to retrain the person. And so two different entities are paying for the same thing. I don't think it is fair on him. I don't think it is fair on the youth that the government has to pay for the education and he has to pay for another kind of education. Why can't we have a situation where our universities are organized in such a way to address local problems? For instance, our universities, you get promotion or you move up if you publish in American Economic Review. Meanwhile, there are problems right in front of your compound that is not being solved. Why can't we task our researchers to say, you work with company ABC and design a curriculum that fits what they need? And if you are able to do that, we're going to use that as points in your favor, rather than asking you to publish in American Economic Review.
Very excellent, Adela. I think I get your point. We need to rejig our education system. That's a very useful contribution. I'll be grateful if you can make your point in just 30 seconds or less. Just straight to the point, your name. Okay, let me go for, I'm very gender sensitive now. Yes, madam.
Mojuba Olu Okome. I think, yes, we need to rejig the education, but we need to do so by providing well-rounded education. So technical skills alone would not prepare anybody to jump in and do a job. And there is still need for on-the-job training, but I'm not going to belabor the point. Now, in terms of think tanks, I wonder how many are in the African continent in general, because I quickly looked, and the US has 1,777. 58% of them were created in the last 25 years, it says. So I do think we need more think tanks, and we need more of us kind of focused on solving the problems. I want to know how those jobs are created, because I didn't hear that. I also think that not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and we need people to do policy. We need people to think about curriculum. We need people to do other things. So this whole obsession with entrepreneurship is a bit frustrating for me, because I think there are other things we need to do in order to also create the environment where entrepreneurship would thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Yes, sir.
Thank you, panelists. My name is Dr. Makasi. I'm from the Namibia University of Science and Technology. I'm going to prefix my question by drawing insights from Joseph Stiglitz.
But I hope you can do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, yeah.
Great, that'll be fine.
In his piece called Globalization and its Discordance, and I'm going to focus on one recommendation which he made. The recommendation was that we need to really balance pace and sequencing. In other words, to say, as policymakers, we need to look at these two to say, are we sequencing our activities properly, and are we pacing at the right pace? Half the time, I think we focus on pace without properly sequencing. And in this case, I'm just thinking about this whole talk about the fourth industrial revolution. Is Africa ready for that? I'll give also one example of one politician, yes, who really donated some computers in a very rural school. 10 computers were donated. 10 years ago, those computers were new. I went there and I discovered that the computers are now used for something else. Because this is a rural school, there's no electricity. It's a clinical case of pace versus sequencing haven't been followed up. In other words, there was supposed to be electricity first before you donate those computers.
That point is very clear, so we need to balance pace with sequencing. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Samuel Zimite. I'm from Cameroon. My question goes to Dr. Litse. Dr. Litse, if my memory is right, the World Food Programme is mainly involved with providing food, providing charity to countries that are stricken by famine or by war or by any form of lack. And my question is, for how long are you going to do this? Africa offers opportunities for there to be lots of food across the continent. Don't you think that developing skills in the area of food, optimizing the entire food chain in Africa will offer better and secure jobs for the youths than stretching hands to the West and other countries every time for food aid?
Very good point. That question is very clear. We'll take just 2 more questions and then we'll come back to the panel. Yes, I want to, again, be gender sensitive. Yes, madame.
Ok, merci. Il faut dire que nous n'allons jamais cesser de parler de l'inadéquation entre la formation et les besoins du marché. Chez moi, par exemple, en Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons le BTS, qui est le brevet de technicien supérieur. Normalement, après les 2 ans, nous devons être opérationnels. Mais les étudiants sont beaucoup portés sur l'acquisition de diplômes et même le système contribue à cela. Donc, lorsque nous avons le BTS, nous ne sommes pas opérationnels. Nous ne pouvons pas, aucune entreprise n'a confiance aux jeunes qui ont le BTS, les prendre pour travailler directement. Donc, il faudrait que nous soyons rigoureux dans la sélection de ces écoles, parce qu'il y a des écoles que nous appelons dans nos jargons les écoles boutiques qui ne respectent rien du tout. Il n'y a pas de matériel adéquat pour former les étudiants. Aussi pour la formation professionnelle. Pourquoi ne pas mettre une collaboration entre les ministères de l'enseignement technique et les entreprises, voir les besoins des entreprises et former les étudiants en fonction des besoins. Sinon, avec ce système-là, nous allons plus former des chômeurs, des jeunes chômeurs que des diplômés, et c'est ce qui se voit aujourd'hui.
Okay, let's take the young man just sitting close by. I'll come to you, don't worry.
Yeah, my name is Dr. John Moshera. I'm going to just be very brief. I think we have a big problem in most of the context of reforming the curriculum, that in African countries, we tend to create interventions when things seem not to be working. So for instance, the curriculum that we have trying to create entrepreneurs, we tend to do it at the high school, at the university level, rather than focusing at the secondary school level, even though we know very well that Dr. Nan said that only 10% of Africans go to the university. So if we continue creating solutions for only 10% of the people, then what are we doing for the 90% of the population? So it means that the policies are not going to help most of the majority of the population. So we need to integrate critical thinking very early at the high school level. We need to ensure that we have problem solving, and we don't have to copy the curriculum in the West. I did my PhD in the US, but we need to create solutions based on the realities in African countries, whereby there's agriculture, but students are taking a lot of electrical courses, a lot of scientific courses, but we are making them think that doing agriculture is not important because it's not a compulsory subject. It's an elective subject, but we are making business to be a compulsory subject in some cases. So we need to really think about our own local solutions and realities and do it at the right time rather than waiting to do it at the post-secondary level. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you very much. I'm back in this side, so I don't know whether there are some of us who are raising our hands here. Yes, sir?
All right. Yeah, thank you. I just want to add to this that if we are to prepare the youth for the future, we have to look at try to work on our economic atmosphere. If what in this part of the world, what really motivates youth to practically pick a course is because of the economic incentive they are going to get by studying that course, given the economic realities in their surrounding. For example, in the UK where I stay, it doesn't matter whether you are a cleaner or you are a farmer, you can buy a house, you can buy a car. It doesn't matter. In fact, there is no difference between you and a doctor. What he has, you can have. You understand? The government has made that platform available. So students go to school based on just what they want to do, not based on economic incentive. But in our African setting, if the government don't give us that platform, that good environment where it doesn't matter, even if I decide to be a farmer tomorrow, I can buy a house, I can buy a car. Then you will see that people will now start looking away from all these big courses because I feel if I study this, I'm going to earn much and it's going to make me live a good life. And, so I think we have to have the right, the strong macroeconomic policies as well as the astute institutional framework to make our economic atmosphere favorable for the youths of the future so that we can study anything we want to study and live a good life with it without having to always depend on government or depend on people or stuff like that.
Very good point. Very good point. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I am Aboukan from Senegal, University Cheikh Anta Diop. I think as long as we will talk about employment without linking it with transformation of our economies, we will waste our time. I think I agree with you if you say that we have to reform our educational system. But in most of our countries, apart from the capital cities, there is no opportunities for young. Even if you change the educational system, I think we have to propose something to change our economies, because there are